Hello once again, everyone. Bonus video for the week. Let's talk about basic one-handed swordsmanship with a shield. So the kind of shield that we're talking about today is going to be any sort of strap shield. So something that you have to actually strap yourself into. We're not doing center grip. We're not talking about bucklers. We're just talking about these guys. This could be a rotella. It could be a heater shield. Suppose it could be some of the bigger tower shields, though those have slightly different properties. But usually I'm talking about something that doesn't fully extend down your length. So, rotellas, heater shields, écranches even, things like that. So first and foremost, let's talk a little bit about some basic advice, and then we'll get into more nitty-gritty. Basic advice, train your left arm. Picking up one of these for the first time, you're going to be like, oh, it's a little hefty, but I'll be okay. And then a few minutes later, you're going to be like, I'm dying, right? Train your left arm leading up into this. I trained for a solid month before I started fencing with this guy. But you will see a couple different grips with this. So at the moment I have strapped one hand. You'll also sometimes see the hand put through the second strap, in which case it's fully under the arm, which allows me to, for example, use a pole arm a little easier. But usually we're going to be this guy. How tightly should it be strapped? It should be enough that you can get, that you feel secure. You know, this isn't really going to shift on me all that much, but it shouldn't be so tight that I can't release at a moment's notice. This advice is given historically as well. The idea being that some do involve casting the shield out. I caught it there. Casting the shield out to throw it. I'm not kidding. Or sometimes even, I think it's Godinho who mentions the idea of it should be loose enough you can ditch it to swim. Which, I'm going to be honest, if I'm in a rout situation and my team is losing and we're going to run, this is cumbersome. I'm ditching it. I'll keep this, but I am ditching this for sake of speed. So, let's talk a little bit about some basic advice. Number one, the universal thing that all masters agree on, from Capoferro to Godinho to McBain, they all agree. If you don't know how to use this, this is more of a hindrance to you than a help. In the hands of an untrained fighter, this is not very good for you. It doesn't automatically give you that much of a chance. That's really funny, because most people assume, oh, if I pick up a shield, I've got a better chance. But the truth is, this guy does not move very quickly, right? If I try to move him over here, I have to settle myself to bring this guy back, right? It's just not that fast. Even if I try to apply some real speed to it, that's me really trying. It's just not as fast as this, right? Number two, it has the property of blinding you, right? If someone cuts for my eyes, and I raise this up, I have lost a lot of vision. And if he was cutting for my eyes, that's where his sword is. So, number three, just holding in front of you, does it do something? Yeah, I mean, this does protect my torso. And in theory, if I'm a good one-handed swordsman, this is fine. But it's just dead weight. If I'm not going to use it, I might as well not hold it. And apologies if the cicadas are particularly loud. But, number four, again, if you're not going to use it, you shouldn't be holding it. You should be using it in conjunction. Just like with the buckler. Even the laziest buckler, where I just hold it out there and fight around it, it is still doing something for me. Don't let your rotella become a hindrance. Keep it working for you. So, let's talk about some more specific basics and some more specific things. Number one, bit of advice that I have that I haven't found in any of my shield sources is that when it comes to fighting with a shield, stand dominant side forward with your sword. The reason being that here is where I want to be when I'm using my shield. In general, though, where I'm going to be fighting with my sword for the most part, I want this guy back. Reason being that if this guy is held here, as it should be, arms slightly bent, about the level of my chest, I've got a big blind spot there. And if someone can tempt me to raise this, and this foot is forward, I am not getting it out of the way in time. The left leg is a huge target, so keep it back. I mean, is it any really surprise that the hoplites or the gladiators wore shin protection on that side? I certainly would, if I was serving as a roldolero. But, basically, left foot back, shield, foot back, sorry. Shield, foot back, other leg forward, you're pretty good. If someone cuts for this lead one, My sword can defend quite easily. I can void back quite easily, right? I also can see it coming. At the very least, I'm going to see it crossing that. That's enough time to pull it back, right? Plus, if I'm fighting a person who is also right-handed, that's a long way for the sword to travel. I can get away from it. So, there's that. Let's go into some specifics. So, general advice for holding the shield is pretty universal. The arm is slightly bent, and it's held about the level of your chest. Now, sometimes you'll see it a little more withdrawn, sometimes you'll see it a little bit more out, but I want it to usually be hovering about here, right, where it defends me. I can see clearly over the shield. Sometimes you'll also see I'm looking here, but I want to be having full vision. I don't want to be restricting myself. We'll come back to that in a moment. My sword arm shouldn't be too far advanced. With a more complex hilt, it's okay, but in general, you want to be keeping them about here, right? The more advanced your arm is, the bigger the target it is. And even with a semi-complex hilt like this, if it's out here, you can still cut my wrist. So, now that I've formed my stance, let's talk about parries. Anything that comes down to me on this side, sword's dealing with it, with a few exceptions, right? Things coming to this side, I can use my shield in conjunction. However, if the opportunity presents itself, I can use them together. Most sources advise either doing what I just did, which is where I extend the arm, and now my sword is pretty much free, or Capoferro specifically advises the idea of passing forward to put my shield into action, right? So for example, I go to feint out to this side, he goes to attack my head, I step into it, a lot of energy, and then finish. So, in general, bring your left foot forward, your shield side forward, if you want to really add this guy. Treat it like a normal passing step. If I'm going to cut from my non-dominant side with a longsword, I bring this guy up. I'm going to use the weapon in my offhand, I'm going to bring this guy up. You will see parries, for example, that are on this side, where I can still attack, right? In which case, I need to bring my left foot up. If I try to do that without passing forward, that sucks, right? Personally, I haven't done that parry a lot. I have a slightly different version of it that I like a little better, but we'll get to that in a moment. Godinho recommends moving the shield to certain positions if need be. So, for example, this is his parry on this side, his parry on this side, parry here, right? Where my sword is being covered by my shield. And that's certainly fine. If you're standing in a low guard, yeah, keep your shield covering your hand, because that is the most immediate target. In general, though, what you don't want to get into the habit of is letting this guy just hang out here. He's not doing anything for me. And I often find that the lazier the shield is, when something comes this way, the more likely you are to do this. I'm blind, I've been hitting the ribs. So, let's talk a little bit about some specific actions that have worked well for me, that I've used, that I like, that I cultivate, regardless of system. Probably the biggest one would be what I call the rim parry, where if I am here and someone is cutting to this side, if I know I've got them, I will step up as I parry with the rim of my shield. Rather than turning the flat, I like to parry with the rim and cut up along this side. I will also sometimes thrust, but usually it's going to be parry, cut up. I can get all of them. If they're right of hand, I get their arm, I get their head, I get their ribs, I get their leg. It's a pretty great parry. But that just moves in conjunction, boom, boom. Again, I am passing up with my left foot. There is, of course, cuts coming down, boom, right? Notice that these are moving in sequence. It's not going 1, 2. It's 1, 2. Or it's 1. Sometimes you need to adjust, Parry, oh, his shield's in the way, adjust. But in general, you want these moving together. You don't want them as two tempo. If you look up footage of people sparring with shield, and I've done this as well, every once in a while you go 1, 2, you just can't help it. Because your brain can only focus on so many things at once. but the more you keep motions tight and together, the better they're going to work for you, because it gives your opponent less time to do anything. So, let's talk about that one. Overhead parry to thrust / cut. Certainly it works. I used it against a longsword, which was a lot of fun. I cut at my head, I parried, I cut, I was good. I have even seen some people advocate the idea of dropping with it. That's modern practitioners, mind you, not historically. I don't have a historical source on that. But it does work, I'll give it that. Would I try it all the time? No. But every once in a while, yeah, sure. Especially if someone's swinging something particularly big at me. The biggest thing when it comes to covering your head like that is be aware that you are now blind. I can't see where his weapon is going if it's on the other side of my shield. So really be sure that you are hitting him in the same tempo. The sooner he's on the ground, the better. Or rather, the sooner he stops fighting. The other sort of big thing you'll see every once in a while is going to be curling the shield up like this, okay? For example, there are the Pincuit sketches, I might be pronouncing that wrong, where we see some Jacobites basically some Jacobites were occupying a town, and one of the locals sketched them. Now, he sketched them looking ugly and a bit like demons, but, you know, politicalness. You see a depiction of one of them doing this. Now, curling up your arm like that, it's basically a telephone block. If you don't know what a telephone block is, it's this, essentially, to cover your head. It certainly does do something. If someone's cutting really quick, yeah, that will guard me. The biggest thing is that it has the same properties as this. It blinds you. So, you'll see some people advocate just standing this way and just keeping that protected. Matt Easton, I believe, did a video on fighting with a shield if you have no idea how to use it, as per the advice given to officers in India. And that was pretty much it. Just hold it here and fence normally. Yeah, I mean, that works. The biggest thing is that it drains energy, and it does blind you. So, keep that in mind. Other sources advocate different things. I believe it's Godinho, I could be wrong. Who advocates if you're fighting in the battle, keep it like here and use it like a breastplate, right? Because that covers me. A big thing to also consider when it comes to shields is that how you're blocking the incoming strike does matter. If I catch it on the rim, it's like catching it on the edge of a sword. It will slide predictably with the rim. And the rim is pretty far away from me, and that's good. If I catch it on the flat, it will slide off of the flat away from me, but it does give time for someone to work over it. So keep that in mind. One of the things I see, unfortunately, happen a lot with some of my guys who have gotten Rotellas recently, is they will block in the middle, and the plant will skip up and hit them in the head. So, be aware, just like with a buckler, you may need to turn your edge outward to defend yourself. And speaking of that, let's talk about Schildschlag, and, you know, suppressing with the shield. Does it come up with Rotella? Oh, absolutely yes. And certainly if I was fencing for real, you bet. But in general, I try to shy away from it because I'm still learning to be super comfortable with this, and I don't want to hurt anybody. But suppressing a weapon, you know, push the weapon down, push onto it with my Rotella. I'm pretty much free to hit how I want. Same thing here, pushing down, hitting, what have you. Notice I'm using the rim. That opening motion is a lot stronger than just pushing. You can also push people up and suppress them that way and attack them underneath. But just like with pretty much any time you employ something from the side, you're going to need to move a foot. Okay? Really, the more I treat it like a dagger parry, especially that guy, the better it is. Otherwise, though, basic advice for fighting with it if you were going to fight with it tomorrow. Stand right foot forward, or dominant side forward. One day I'll be good at that. Keep your shield out here, enough that you can see over it. Keep your sword the same level as your shield, okay? If someone cuts at this side, defend with your sword. If someone cuts at this side, move, defend with your sword. If you feel brave, and the cut is, especially if it's coming from right there, sword and shield. If someone cuts low at you, sword and shield. Use this as a conjunction, an accessory. Don't rely on it. if you end up in this moment where you just defended with the with the shield, be ready to move away, because that's where the cut's going to go next. It's going to go low. That would be my basic advice. Otherwise, though, that's my advice for training sword and shield, some basics and some anecdotes from different sources. Overall, pretty much all the sources advocate the same thing. If you don't know how to use it, it's more of a hindrance to you than anything else, so don't rely on it. So definitely practice a lot, get used to the shield, then start using it in sparring, and you'll have better results. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching. We'll go over some other things another time.